I'm delighted for these sessions to be talking to Dr. David Webster, who is subject group leader here at the University of Gloucestershire in religion and ethics and philosophy, and also he is a principal lecturer in religion, philosophy and ethics. And today we're going to be talking about some aspects of Buddhism. So Dave, to start the session, I'd like to ask you about the 4 sights that the Buddha saw.
Yeah, the 4 sights represent an episode in the account of the life of the Buddha. So the Buddha has his lifetime. He's, to all extents and purposes, to people outside of the narrative, to his father, to people around him, a married man who's heir to either the throne, if you see him as a prince, or to the clan chief's kingdom, but some kind of heir to his father's influence. And he has a wife, he has a son, but he's becoming disenchanted with life. And these 4 sights represent the acceleration of his disenchantment, and then ultimately they're seen as the motivation for his renunciation, for his going forth from home into homelessness that Buddhist monks still do today. The 4 sights, when he goes for a chariot ride around the kingdom, he wants to go and see things, and he's taken out on the first of these. He sees an old man. He says, "But what's unusual about him? What's wrong with him?" And after a while it's explained to him, this person is old, and he's never heard of aging before.
Right.
In fact, his entire life has been one of luxury, in which, according to the narrative, he's shielded from all suffering. He doesn't know about that people get old. How he can be in his late 20s and married and not know about suffering is another matter. But he's, for the purposes of the story, shielded from suffering. So he says, what's wrong with that person? And they're old, they're aging. Not only does he find this disturbing, it's also explained to him by people on the chariot or the charioteer that he too will age. And he finds this very upsetting, very distressing. Not only will other people get old, but he too will, his body will start to not work as well, look more wrinkled, look more dishevelled, and start, as we all know all too well, to start to collapse. This is a bit distressing. He goes out again, not having learnt his lesson, and sees someone who's ill, a sick person. Well, they're old.
Right.
In a different way,
yes.
What's going on. But he explains, they're ill, they've got a sickness. And he says, that's very unfortunate for them. Explain to him again, he too will get sick. He too will get ill. His body will get ill in various ways over his life. And his wife will, who he loves. And his son, who he feels affection for. And this is, again, distressing. Imagine the kind of psychic shock of discovering at so late a point in life that people get old, people get ill. So he goes back and he goes out another trip. You see the pattern here. He goes on another trip and he sees a corpse. And he says, is that person really old? Maybe they're really ill. They're not moving. And someone says, they're dead. And what death consists of, it explained to the Buddha to be, he's not the Buddha yet, he's Siddhartha Gautama, the Bodhisattva, who will become the Buddha later on in the story. And he's a dead person, and he again explained to him that he too will die. In fact, everyone he loves and has ever loved and will ever love and have affection for will all die. This is kind of crushing to him. He thinks, how can we live in a world of aging, sickness and death? The whole of my life has been a sham. All the happiness that I see around me is a sham. In my son's face I see not reflected his beauty and things, but a mortal being on the way to the grave. It kind of really, what we might call an existential shock. But luckily for us, we might say, or luckily for Buddhists, there's a 4th trip, and on the 4th visit he sees someone who looks really kind of calm and peaceful, at peace with themselves.
Right.
I guess. And he thinks, well, that person, how can they be peaceful? In a world of aging, sickness and death, how can there be someone who looks happy? And he, does he not know about aging, sickness and death? No, just you, we didn't tell, on the instructions of your father. So he says, well, how can this person know about aging, sickness and death and be calm and content and seem to radiate happiness. And they say, oh, well, here's a Shramana, here's a sage, a philosopher, a wise one, however we want to translate it. And he thinks, God, it's possible, somehow, by some acquisition of wisdom, or some kind of experiential process, to both know about aging, sickness and death, and to be content. What is that? And that's seen by many as what sets him off to think, how can I get that? How can I find the answer to aging, sickness and death? How can I find lasting happiness in the face of these raw, brute, existential facts about the world?
Profound existential questions.
Absolutely, they're really important, and he encounters them in his life. And obviously, we don't necessarily believe it as a literal account of what happened, but it's set up to say, to kind of bring home the punch of these unpleasantnesses, to say aging, sickness and death, which we normally push away in our mind, they're inevitable. Everything around us is all bound for kind of rubbish. As it were, it's all kind of collapsing, getting older. And the time, as the Buddha explains in various discourses, in which to seek a lasting solution to this is short.
Right.
And death will come, aging, sickness, and particularly death, will come and wipe away everything. And what are we going to do? Everything that matters, everything that seems so permanent around us, is all going to be crushed. What are we going to do? Now, quickly.
Yes.
And that's what kind of motivates him to go and take what is quite radical action. An action that we might look on now quite judgmentally. He abandons his wife and child. He leaves the palace. And to use the phrase that say Buddhists still use now, he goes forth from home into homelessness and becomes a wandering renunciant looking for the answer.
Right.
And that forms a pivotal part of the Buddhist account of his life.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay.